music that revives memories. The powerful 1520. KYND, Cypress, Houston, a Synergy broadcaster.
Good morning. This is Zakiya Larry live. Oh my gosh. TGIM. Thank goodness it's Monday.
Woohoo.
Yeah, right? So everybody always says, I hate Mondays. Mondays are the evil stepsisters. But I love Mondays because this is an opportunity for us to kick the week off and make sure we're in a posture of elevation. And so to that point, if you've been hanging in here with me the past couple of weeks, you know I've been doing a very special series called Broken and Blended Families. And when I tell you, literally, lives have been changed. And this is these are testimonials. We have talked to mothers who talk about their role. Did they play a role in breaking their family, and how do they blend? We even talk to kids without adults in the mix to really get their true feelings. We then talk to dads, men. That was powerful. Everything from a man who raised his children himself to a man who wasn't even present. And we talked to them about their roles in broken and blended families. And so now, the piece de resistance, the bow on this package, we are talking the role of teachers. And that's so incredible because I heard a stat that there are 50 million students in the education system. There are about 3 million teachers to teach them all. So one, not only am I the daughter of a retired educator, but I went through a broken and blended family myself. And I got to tell you, school was my safe haven. And that's where I went to, one, unload all of my teenage angst. Unfortunately, got put out of class a couple of times. That's okay, though. I was still on the honor roll, so, who knew? But I had to get kicked out. I had a little attitude here and there. But I was hurting. And these amazing teachers were there on the front lines, one, taking the heat, but also walking me through that. And that happened, I was counseled by teachers in a personal sense, even into college. So these are our heroes on the front lines who are really helping our kids who are dealing with broken and blended families. And so parents, I need you to listen up and hear the heart of these teachers. But also, if you have kids that hate school, let them watch this and listen. You can go to Facebook to Zakiya Larry. You can also listen and watch ZakiyaLarryLive.com. And be sure, I'm going to give this number out only a couple of times because we're going to get into this and you're going to want to call in and join us. But you want to talk to us on social media using hashtag ZLLive. But you want to call in and talk to these teachers. I'm about to tell you who we got. But you want to call 832-230-5592, 832-230-5592. Now, really quickly before we get into my favorite segment, we got Stephanie D. Miller in the house, licensed family therapist. So she's going to help us to really understand what kids are thinking and how teachers can heal themselves from these attacks. But also listen to these teachers that are coming up. We're going to have very first, early on, Sydney Chafee. She is the National Teacher of the Year. You've seen her possibly in the White House receiving her award. You've seen her on CBS this morning. After Sydney, we got live Barry White Jr. You remember that brother that did the handshakes for every single student, and he was on the Today Show, and, you remember Barry White Jr.? That gentleman will be on today. And then we're going to have Sonia Romero. So Sonia Romero is based here in our region, but you may have seen her on The Ellen Show because she is a superstar teacher who has actually become the mom for some of her students. And I literally mean in her own house.
Wow.
Okay. So, you can tell it's some big backstories to a lot of these things. Now, we're going to go beyond their stories, because you can Google CNN and Ellen, and you can see their hero stories. What we're doing today is elevating the conversation. We're going to touch on their hero story, but we want to hear why they do what they do, how they overcome the challenges in the classroom, and what we can do to help our kids who are struggling with broken and blended families to be ready for the classroom when they encounter these incredible teachers. So it's going to be a fun show. It's going to be a deep show. You know how I like to do levity and gravity. Okay.
Yes.
But before we get into that, it's my favorite segment. Wait, what?
Wait, what?
Listen, do you have a wait, what teacher or classroom story? Because, you know, school, especially elementary and middle school, that was like a hot mess moment for most people's lives. I'll tell you mine really quickly.
Okay.
And please don't judge me, guys. I am a very peaceful, loving person. But I'll say around maybe 4th grade, no, maybe 2nd. Who knows? Elementary school. I beat up a little boy named Daniel on the playground. Listen, I you know, in the words of Tupac, I saw the Tupac movie last night, by the way.
Good.
So, you know, it was good. One of his opening lyrics was, "I ain't a killer, but don't push me." All right. So I'm just trying to live my little elementary school life, and Daniel kept harassing me. I told my teacher. The teacher was like, "Oh, whatever." And then Daniel touched me inappropriately. And that's when I knew I had a future in sprinting and in track. So we got outside on the playground. I, as we say in track, walked him down because he took off running because he knew the deal. Okay. Beat up Daniel. I was super tiny and on a roll, so nobody knew. Nobody knew, like, I was just giving poor Daniel the business. So anyway, principal's office, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. I didn't get suspended because he was inappropriate. A couple of days later, this huge woman storms into our cafeteria at lunch, and she was like, "Where is she? Where is she? Who beat up my son?" Like, I guess this was before security or something. I don't know. Like, you can roll up on elementary school kids. And, yeah, Daniel pointed me out, and so did my other classmates. They, like, all pointed at me. And so this mom walks over to me. She's enraged. She's just giant. And she looked me up and down. And then she turned to Daniel and was like, "You let this little tiny girl beat you up? You deserve to get beat up." And she popped him on the back of the head and walked out. So, you know, that's my wait. Why? Like, come on. Like, why is elementary school so dramatic?
Wait, what?
So you have a wait what with school, and my poor teachers, obviously, they were in the mix. Like, is this kid getting beat up by a mom? I don't know. So if you have a wait what about your school experience, use hashtag ZL Live on social media. What you think, Stephanie?
I think, well, I would tell you, surprisingly, I think we were pretty much the same type. But I won't go into a lot of detail.
Okay.
But I will tell you this. I found out in high school that there was something called an office U.
Okay.
U meaning unsatisfactory conduct.
Oh,
And it's the
like
lowest.
a U in conduct. Gotcha.
It's the lowest you could go.
Gotcha. And E was good, right? I think I remember
was
that
good.
scale.
E was
Okay.
good.
Gotcha.
So I, too, was a straight A student.
Okay.
But I had a mouth like my mom, and I was very principled. So my homeroom teacher had a thing for a teacher across the hall.
Ooh,
So they used to sit and, stand and chatting.
Don't tell me you rolled up on them, Stephanie.
Well, I figured like this. As long as they were out there, I could be out there.
Oh, yeah. So you
I-
wanted to hang in the hallway.
So I challenged her, and I thought just as long as I was a step ahead of her, I would be okay.
Uh-oh.
But I guess she had had enough of me.
She had enough.
So I had to go to the principal's office.
And you got a U?
No, I got an office U,
And, oh, that's another level.
which means that it was an asterisk, and
Oh,
all
not
of my
the asterisk.
A's lost points.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, the moral of this wait what is don't be a gangster in school. Like, keep your grades together, because what is the point? What is the point?
what
That
is
is
the
hilarious.
point?
Well,
I
thank you
know.
for sharing your wait what. That is hilarious.
Hey.
So you know what? I want to get into this conversation with our teachers very early on. Let me tell you really quickly about Sydney Chafee. Now listen, you're going to hear a lot about her story in our interview, so I won't have to unpack it all. But what I will say is I need you to get out a pen and I need you to get out some paper, because Sydney is about to shift some stuff. You are going to be surprised. So if you have any questions about social justice and women who are tall and blonde, you're going to want to listen to this next interview. The Teacher of the Year, Sydney Chafee.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. This is such a critical conversation that we're having here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Sydney, before we jump into how you've been able to navigate and effectively teach children, I'd love to hear a bit about your journey, because I found that has colored how you teach and what makes you so incredibly exceptional. So I do know that you went to college for poetry, and yet you're the National Teacher of the Year. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you knew it was time to switch gears and take the teaching route, and if that poet is still inside of you and kind of pops up in the classroom here and there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to Sarah Lawrence College in New York to be a poet. I was following in my sister's footsteps, who had gone there before me, and she's now a lawyer, so the poetry thing didn't really work out for either of us.
Oh, well, for anybody.
But when I was there, I had amazing teachers, and they loved what they were doing, and they loved working with young people and helping us shape our ideas and helping us learn how to learn and learn how to write. And after a few years there, I was just in love with the place, and I was in love with who I was there, and I was in love with how I was using my mind there, and I wanted to stay there forever. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to shelve this poet thing, and I'm going to be a professor, and I'll live here, and I'll teach here, and I'll never leave, and I'll become an institution here. And my mentor, who was a women's history teacher named Lita Sizer, she encouraged me to look at teaching in high schools or middle schools, because her father was a famous ed reformer named Ted Sizer. And so she said, you know, read my father's book and then go and visit one of the schools that he started and see what you think about that world. And I was intrigued when I went into this high school because, you know, for me, high school, it was good. I learned. I had opportunities to work with great teachers. And at the same time, I sometimes felt out of place. And it was exciting for me to go to college and feel like I sort of found my place there. So to be back in a high school and to see it through an adult's eyes was really interesting. And that sort of set me on my path. And from there, I realized I didn't have to be a professor. I could teach younger people, and I could do for them what my professors had done for me. I could help them learn about the power of their minds, and I could set them on fire with learning. And so that's been my goal. That's what I hope to do. A few years ago at school, my boss had us, all of the teachers, before the kids arrived for the year, had us do an exercise where we had to figure out what is our grand passion in life. And it was something I'd never been asked before. And I couldn't think of, well, what is my passion? And then I realized that my passion is storytelling. And that's really the thread that connects that 19-year-old, 18-year-old poet that I was to the teacher who I am today, is that both in poetry and in teaching, I'm telling stories about history and about myself, and I'm helping students learn how to tell their own stories. That's something I'm so excited about with this Teacher of the Year opportunity, is that I get to travel around the country this year and tell stories and hear other people's stories, and it's such an amazing opportunity.
Zakiya Larry Live. Everybody has a past, so together we'll use all of it to unlock your purpose. It's about real life, real talk, real change. Welcome to Zakiya Larry Live.
KYND. It's about connection.
It's about community.
It's about empowerment.
It's about you.
The kind of talk that inspires change.
Connect now at kyndradio.com.
You have something special. You have greatness in you. Hello, my name is Les Brown, and I want to invite you to join me on KYND Monday from 9 o'clock until 10. It's radio that is designed to help you to live your dreams rather than your fears. A lot of people are talking about what's going on in the White House. I say, focus on what's going on in your house. We're going to teach you how to begin to overcome your fears, how to identify the goals that you want to achieve and make them happen, and how to begin to get negative, toxic people out of your life. You have something special. You have greatness within you. Listen to me Monday from 9 o'clock until 10 on KYND. You have something special. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
KYND is not just talk radio, it's interactive radio. Powered by JStream, the future of broadcasting. Listeners now have multiple ways they connect to the conversation. Using a mobile device or computer, they are able to watch their favorite radio talk shows just like a TV program. They can call in during a broadcast, send instant messages as they listen live, or share a broadcast so all their friends can watch live on Facebook.
KYND, it's about connection.
It's about community.
It's about empowerment.
It's about you.
The kind of talk that inspires change.
Connect now at kyndradio.com.
You have something special. You have greatness in you. Hello, my name is Les Brown, and I want to invite you to join me on KYND Monday from 9 o'clock until 10. It's radio that is designed to help you to live your dreams rather than your fears. A lot of people are talking about what's going on in the White House. I say focus on what's going on in your house. We're going to teach you how to begin to overcome your fears, how to identify the goals that you want to achieve and make them happen, and how to begin to get negative, toxic people out of your life. You have something special. You have greatness within you. Listen to me Monday from 9 o'clock until 10 on KYND. You have something special. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
KYND is not just talk radio, it's interactive radio. Powered by JStream, the future of broadcasting. Listeners now have multiple ways they connect to the conversation.
Zakiya Larry
The listeners know that my show is all about elevation, be it personal, professional, and using what's in your past to propel you forward. And so when you said that 18-year-old poet in you is now a large part of the teacher that you've become today, you're illustrating that nothing you have is ever wasted. That's so powerful. Wow. Thank you for that. So you mentioned storytelling and setting kids on fire. And you have a fiery subject matter. I know you teach humanities, but the official title of your class is Justice and Injustice. Ninth grade, Justice and Injustice. I'm just going to sit that right there, Sydney. Can you tell us something about what's going on?
Absolutely. And, that's what makes learning interesting, is when we're talking about things that we can have different opinions on, and we can have some debate, and we can dig in. And those are the moments where my classroom is most alive. And that's why I love this subject and the name of this course. So I inherited the name of this course from teachers who came before me at the school. And I've made it my own in the 10 years that I've been at the school. So we look at moments in history that exemplify justice and injustice, and we look at sort of the lens of colonialism and how different groups of people have been colonized and how they have then sought justice. So we look at relearning the story of Christopher Columbus and the indigenous people that he encountered. We look at the Haitian Revolution. We look at apartheid in South Africa. And then we look at what's happening in Puerto Rico today, and we try to decide, so given everything that we've studied about history and about colonialism, how do we characterize Puerto Rico? Is it a colony of the United States? Is it a modern-day colony? And what are the ways in which we think Puerto Rico is experiencing injustice right now, and how might we suggest that we achieve more of a just situation there, if indeed we think it's an unjust situation? And then it is a humanities class, so everything we do We're building literacy skills. We're reading and we're writing about those compelling historical topics.
Here's what's interesting to me, though, Sydney. You are teaching students to re-examine history in these different areas from a different context, right? But I'm sure it is now ringing true given the current racial climate and political climate in America. So let's talk about that. I'm just going to throw it out there. There have been struggles with people of color in America, obviously throughout the history, but especially within the last 4 to 5 years. And as one of your students put it, it's so cute, so we're not going to call her out, but she said, this tall white lady who's teaching us little black kids. So subconsciously there's already a divide, but you are broaching subjects that are even relevant today in a tough climate. Do you then talk about what's happening in America to these kids who are considered, from the urban community, and how do you bridge that divide?
The fact that I look different from my students, the fact that I am a white person, the fact that I've grown up with all of this privilege that they have not grown up with is apparent from the moment they walk in the door and see me. And so my job at that point is to lean into that and make sure that in my classroom we can talk about race. We can talk about how the history that we're learning about relates to what's happening today and how my history has been different from my students' history. When we're learning about apartheid, we're learning about people who look like my students being oppressed by people who look like me. And so I think it's not a new conversation that we're having given our context right now in America, but it's a more important conversation that we're having. It's a more relevant conversation. So I don't need to bring that to the students. The students bring it into the classroom. And then my job is to make the space for it, to say, okay, so we're learning about apartheid. We're talking about race. Let's first make it safe for us to talk about race in this classroom. And then let's make it safe to talk about, well, what are the ways that we see connections between what you're seeing on the news that's happening around the corner in terms of a protest and what we're learning about happened in South Africa during apartheid 50 years ago. So when we're learning about apartheid, we look at student resistance movements and how did young people, the same age as my students, fight back against apartheid and really raise the awareness of the world about what was happening in that country. And when my students learn about that, they start to question, well, what would happen if we, or, well, what lesson can we learn from that? And I think that's incredibly powerful for the students. It's really important to have those conversations, and it's really important to be honest with my students about who I am and the things that I cannot possibly understand given how I've grown up and who I've been in my life, and also be really clear with them that it is okay for us to talk about race and that that's not something we have to be afraid to talk about because it's real and it's here.
Have kids ever been apprehensive to sort of touch on this, and then have you seen them then blossom into their own power?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the beginning of the year, there are students who are afraid to use the word white around me. And then as the year goes on and we have these conversations more often, they become more comfortable and they understand it's not taboo to talk about race. This is something that is real. This is something that impacts us. And they start to get more comfortable and they start to be able to ask questions. And they'll say things to me like, Sydney, do you think if you were living in South Africa during apartheid, how do you think you would have acted as a white person? And that's, what an incredible question for them to be able to ask me, and then an incredible conversation for us to dig into and try to have together. So being a student requires being vulnerable in this very particular way, to come into a classroom and to be vulnerable enough to say, I need help doing this, or I'm not sure yet how to do this. From having these big, uncomfortable conversations about race, even down to learning how to write an essay, all of that requires this vulnerability and this risk-taking on the part of students, and all of that requires that I build a culture in the classroom that is safe for them to take those risks.
So what's your greatest hope then for these students? Because you've created this incubator for bravery and conversation and critical thinking and confronting injustices, especially from a very thought-provoking perspective. But what's your greatest hope for them once they leave your classroom?
My greatest hope for my students is that they will understand and internalize their own brilliance and their own power, that they will understand that all of the things that they're learning and all of the skills that they're building, they can use all of those things, they can apply all of those things to make a change in the world. So there are aspects of our world right now that my students are unhappy with, uncomfortable with, frightened about, angry about. I want them to understand that they are the people who are going to be able to make changes in the world. It's not going to be me, right? It's going to be them. So that's always my greatest hope for them. Yeah, and then, I mean, other than that, I just hope that they will continue to be brave and to advocate for themselves and to be a community with one another, because nothing great that they are going to accomplish is going to happen by one of them alone. They're going to do it together.
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of doing great work together, as you know, we're wrapping up the Broken and Blended Family series, and teachers are critical because you spend almost more time with kids than their own parents do. So they come into this classroom, and they're going to confront these very complex issues and learn how to think through them. But, Sydney, you've seen it. They're coming with their own little bags packed full of emotional trauma. Their hearts are often heavy before they can even get to your learning. So when it comes to how you've interacted with students who may have had emotional challenges or challenges at home, what are maybe just 2 tips you can give to fellow educators listening today with how to reach those students when they walk into the door so that they can be primed for learning?
The best advice I ever got, I got really early in my career from a teacher who'd been in the game much longer than I had, and she said, don't take it personally. And it can be so hard because for teenagers, when they feel safe with you, you are often the person that they will sort of project their anxiety or their anger onto. And so when a student acts out, when they say something hurtful, when they shut down, when they do all of these things that we know are them crying out for help, it's really important to remember, don't take it personally. It's not about you. It's the student needs to be able to show in some way that they need help and they need support, and that's the way that they're doing it. So to try to really remember, this is a child, and they are communicating something to you in the way that they're acting. So don't resist the temptation to assume that the thing you see on the surface is what they want to communicate, because it's usually not. There's something else there. My other tip is to care for yourself. I mean, you cannot bring all of the heart and all of the love and all of the dedication that you need to bring to this job to do right by the kids if you're not able to take care of yourself as well.
So, mentor, Sydney, let's shift really quickly before you head out of here and continue helping our world be a better place. My last question for you it's for our parents, because our parents are very interactive. I see them chatting here on social media. They're weighing in. A lot of parents are struggling and dealing with guilt about their family situation and how it's impacting their kids. And they want the best for their children. We get it. What are maybe 2 tips for parents who are currently going through a broken situation in their home or blending a family? What are 2 tips you have for them to help empower their kids and also prepare their kids for success in the classroom, even when maybe the home life is a little tumultuous right now?
Absolutely. So I think that it's really, really important for family members to remember that they are not in this alone, that no student is being supported by one person. No one person is going to lift a student up entirely. Families are so important. They know their kids best. They love their kids most in the world, right? But there's this community of support. And when you are going through something so big and so traumatic at home, to remember that there are teachers and there are other adults and community members who are there with you to help support that child, I think can be incredibly important and powerful to remember. And then on that note, I guess my more concrete tip would be to really form relationships with some of the teachers and staff members at the school, because we know, being former teenagers, that our parents are often not the ones that we're going to go to.
Right.
We're often going to find someone else that we're going to try and talk to in those moments. And You're right. Kids spend a lot of time at school, and so a lot of times they find a trusted adult at school, and they talk to that person. And so forming relationships with people at the school to really make sure that you're on the same page in supporting that child, and that the staff member knows where you're coming from and what's going on at home, so they can support the child as best as possible. I've had some students who have put their trust in me and have reached out to me, and knowing that I have an open line of communication with the family and I can talk to the family about what's going on really makes me feel confident that we're going to support that child and help that child through whatever they're going through. So just remembering that we are all a part of this network, this community of support for children, and that we're doing it together, because it's hard work to bring teenagers up into the people that they're going to become. So we've got to stick together in that.
We've got to stick together. Sydney, thank you for who you are, what you do, what you offer, and for spending time with us this morning on Zakiya Larry Live. You are a complete breath of...
Hey, go refresh your coffee or send that quick email and come right back. There's more coming up next on Zakiya Larry Live.
KYND, it's about connection.
It's about community.
It's about empowerment.
It's about you.
The kind of talk that inspires change.
Connect now at kyndradio.com.
You have something special. You have greatness in you. Hello, my name is Les Brown, and I want to invite you to join me on KYND Monday from 9 o'clock until 10. It's radio that is designed to help you to live your dreams rather than your fears. A lot of people are talking about what's going on in the White House. I say focus on what's going on in your house. We're going to teach you how to begin to overcome your fears, how to identify the goals that you want to achieve and make them happen, and how to begin to get negative, toxic people out of your life. You have something special. You have greatness within you. Listen to me Monday from 9 o'clock until 10 on KYND. You have something special. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
KYND is not just talk radio, it's interactive radio. Powered by JStream, the future of broadcasting. Listeners now have multiple ways they connect to the conversation. Using a mobile device or computer, they are able to watch their favorite radio talk shows just like a TV program. They can call in during a broadcast, send instant messages as they listen live, or share a broadcast so all their friends can watch live on Facebook.
KYND, it's about connection.
It's about community.
It's about empowerment.
It's about you.
The kind of talk that inspires change.
Connect now at kyndradio.com.
You have something special. You have greatness in you. Hello, my name is Les Brown, and I want to invite you to join me on KYND Monday from 9 o'clock until 10. It's radio.
Funny.
Zakiya Larry live in the building.
Oh, wow. Thank you again to Sydney Chafee. And she gave some incredible tips for both kids and parents, especially in a tough political climate. But I know there are some parents who are saying, I want to give tips. I get that. But my kid is struggling. They don't have a father figure. And it's a myriad of other issues, right? But we have joining us right now, oh, my gosh, superstar Barry White Jr. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How you doing?
I'm incredible. And I love that you're on the job and you're making time for us. You see, if you're watching on ZakiyaLarryLive.com, Barry is in the classroom. So you know this brother. You've seen him all over national news, everything from Today Show, CBS, CNN, all that good stuff. He created custom handshakes for every single student in his class. I know you remember him. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go deeper because we know he created the handshakes. We've seen in other interviews that it fosters a good relationship in the classroom. And people have even asked him, like, how long does it take? And he said, muscle memory. So, Barry, I want to ask a different question about the handshakes before we get into the nitty-gritty. I know you said executing them is all about muscle memory. But listen, where does it start, sir? Like, is there a handshake rehearsal on Wednesdays at 4 p.m.? Like, how do you make them up first before it becomes muscle memory? I need to know.
Well, it really just kind of starts pretty much with me and the student collaborating. You know, we since I started doing handshakes, and of course, how it came about with my 4th grade student last year. You know, and I just kind of me and her had our own one-on-one handshake, and from there, I just saw the impact it made on her and how that positive impact it had. This year, I came to 5th grade. Just wanted to kind of pretty much make sure that have that impact on the entire 5th grade cluster. Just positivity, just joy, and just see, how much it had with academics and growth. And it really just started, recess. I had 1 or 2 students that, hey, you want to do a handshake with me? And pretty much from there, it is contagious. It started, one student had one, another student one. Mr. White, I need one. Mr. White, make mine up. Right. And then this became my second job almost. Like,
your handshake went viral at the school
at 4 a.m. You know what I mean? So tomorrow, 6 a.m., have it ready for me. What? So pretty much became my new obligation. And just some, positive fun to build, trust and that pretty much a relationship with my students.
I love, so you said some key things, trust, relationship, but collaboration. Teaching kids how to collaborate with an adult. So we're talking broken and blended families, and you've seen a lot of kids come through your classroom. As a male teacher, when you see students who are dealing with emotional issues from home, how do you approach that?
Well, I think just as educators, and, we have to definitely understand that when they enter the building, we now take on that obligation pretty much as school dad or school mom. Whether or not we like the title or not, that's pretty much what's happening. The transition from the parents are pretty much transitioning their students and releasing them to us in our care, trusting that we're going to take care of them, academically, of course, and also build their character. So while we might not, put food on the table, things of that nature, we still take on a huge responsibility as far as building up their child. We see them we with them more hours of the day than the actual parents are. So we do take on that role. So with that being said, I really just look at it as, this is my opportunity to give my student that positivity, to be their joy, be that sanctuary. So when they come into school, they know they're coming into a safe environment, a safe learning environment, and somewhere they can have fun, where they can release, where they can, they can look forward to coming to.
I love that you said sanctuary, Barry. Let's touch on the sanctuary piece, because what I love about your story is that, the teacher before, we all have a journey. And so what I love is you looked at being a teacher as being a mentor first. That's why you entered teaching. Is that correct?
Absolutely. That's,
So for you, it wasn't that I want to teach. It was I want to mentor, and this is how I can do it every single day. Why is that important, especially when we talk about broken and blended families and your classroom being a sanctuary? Is that a lot of weight on the shoulders of teachers? Is that too much?
Well, it can be some weight on the shoulders of people, but like you just said before, my whole idea of coming into this was simply just mentoring. At an early age, I was able to, 17 years old, become a mentor to some students through programs that I was involved in, and I just really saw how the impact that had on that individual, them having a big brother or somebody they can look up to, they can talk to, or they can want to idolize or want to be like. So I think it really just boils down to you just taking on responsibility of being that light for somebody else.
Yes.
Like, of being that beating light, being that positive role model for somebody else. It doesn't necessarily have to be a teacher. You don't have to have your license or certificate or degree. You can simply just be. It could be somebody in your neighborhood. It could be somebody you just see at the library every day or it's the street, and this can pretty much take on that responsibility of, listen, I'm gonna be the one to make sure to kind of lead you on that right path. Just give back. That's what it comes back to. Just giving back.
But Barry, it's only one of you.
Much what it boils down to.
I love it.
Is just being able to show somebody else that not just with your words. Anybody can say something, can tell them to do something, but for them to actually see you and want to follow your lead in a positive way. I feel like that's just powerful, and it may come with a lot of pressure, but I mean, life is not always fair. Sometimes with great responsibility, great power comes great responsibility. And you got to be able to take one with the other. And
Well,
I think
speaking of that great
something to be said about those
responsibility,
individuals who really
absolutely
step into that role of, being a mentor, not necessarily a teacher,
right,
but a mentor to somebody else. Because that shows a lot about your character,
right?
How you were made, and maybe you want to give back. Somebody did it for you. Now it's your turn to give back, and I think that's just a revolving door that really needs to, just go around in the world. And you see how much positive energy happens.
Right. Barry, listen, I know that you talked about great responsibility, but we have a licensed family therapist here who said something really powerful to me, and we want to know if you're doing this right now. So, Stephanie, jump in here. What did you say about Barry? Because there's only one of him, and we need more of him, right?
Right. And Barry, during the break, we were talking, and I said, well, I hope he knows that he's not going to be in that classroom very long. And she looked at me and I said, nah, because he has to multiply himself. You're giggling. I don't know how you're going to do it, but eventually you are, be it through the role of administrator or even more than that, even teaching.
Yeah. But Barry, you're at conferences speaking all across the nation right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have speaking engagements that I will be doing throughout the summer.
Awesome. You know what, Barry, before we go to break really quickly, will you give our parents a tip who may say, my kids don't have a father figure, they're kind of acting out. I know teachers can be a mentor, but I'm struggling just bringing all the pieces together. How do I get my kid halfway ready to be in Mr. White's classroom?
Well, this is something I've said before, and I love that you asked that. Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
What I would tell parents is simply give them some encouragement every day in the morning. Like when you wake them up, give them some type of positive narration. Like, hey, I see you was up before me, or you was up before the alarm. Like, great job. Or I see you got your book bags packed, or your homework is done, or something so small as, hey, did you brush your teeth already? Excellent job. Give them some type of pump up to positive narration in the morning, kind of set the tone for their day. Because people don't really see the power in just how much the small gestures, like a small handshake or a small little compliment does for a child, especially a child.
Right.
In that morning, and the rest of the day is set. So by the time they get to me, they have received positive narration from their parents at home, their guardians at home. Then when they get to school, they got school dad here ready to pump them up, give them that energy. So it's a team effort now. It really
absolutely.
But now we really, we operate as a team. So
school dad operates as a team. Encouragement in the morning. Big ups to Barry White Jr. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on Zakiya Larry Live. Keep talking to him on social media. Barry, we are going to keep your legacy going, and we will be back with more Zakiya Larry Live.
It's your elevation strategist, Zakiya Larry, and you're listening to Zakiya Larry Live on KYND 1520 AM.
Zakiya Larry Live.
Greatness in you. Hello, my name is Les Brown, and I want to invite you to join me on KYND Monday from 9 o'clock until 10. It's radio that is designed to help you to live your dreams rather than your fears. A lot of people are talking about what's going on in the White House. I say focus on what's going on in your house. We're going to teach you how to begin to overcome your fears, how to identify the goals that you want to achieve and make them happen, and how to begin to get negative, toxic people out of your life. You have something special. You have greatness within you. Listen to me Monday from 9 o'clock until 10 on KYND. You have something special. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
KYND is not just talk radio, it's interactive radio. Powered by JStream, the future of broadcasting. Listeners now have multiple ways they connect to the conversation. Using a mobile device or computer, they are able to watch their favorite radio talk shows just like a TV program. They can call in during a broadcast, send instant messages as they listen live, or share a broadcast so all their friends can watch live on Facebook.
KYND, it's about connection.
It's about community.
It's about empowerment.
It's about you.
The kind of talk that inspires change.
Connect now at kyndradio.com.
You have something special. You have greatness in you. Hello, my name is Les Brown, and I want to invite you to join me on KYND Monday from 9 o'clock until 10. It's radio that is designed to help you to live your dreams rather than your fears. A lot of people are talking about what's going on in the White House.
Zakiya Larry live in the building.
Okay, so we just talked to the handshake teacher, Barry White Jr. He gave us some incredible tips to get your kids ready, even if they're in a broken or blended environment, for the learning environment. But what I love about what he said is he's school dad, and that teachers are either school dad and school mom. I thought that was so powerful, and what a great segue into a woman that I admire so much, an absolute beautiful spirit, and I've just had such a fun time talking to her. We've got with us Zakiya Romero. Now, you may have seen her on the Ellen Show. She is the hero teacher who does wellness checks for her students in the morning. And Zakiya and I are going to talk a little bit about what that means, but her story has a huge twist. All right, remember I said school mom, school dad. Good morning, Zakiya. Can you hear us? Good morning. Okay, we can't hear. I think, Zakiya, can you hear me? You can nod if you can hear me. Okay. She can hear us, but we cannot hear her. Oh, no. Board operators, do we have a fix for that at all? So let me tell you a little bit about Zakiya while they tinker with some of these tools here. Thank you for hanging in here with us, Zakiya. But Zakiya Romero, I told you, does wellness checks. And that literally, she asks her students, have you eaten today? Does anyone need to brush their teeth? Does anybody need clean clothes? Does anyone need to wash up? And they use their, baby wipes to do so. And so just a very powerful woman. And I shared with Zakiya that I know teachers are highly involved because my mom is a retired educator. I get that. I did not know the extent to which teachers can become involved. And she has some insight on what teachers can do and how involved you can be as a teacher, because I didn't know. And there are some things that I would love to participate in that I know my mom has talked about wanting to do. And Zakiya has been able to crack the code on that, right? Zakiya, you cracked the code there. So I wanted to give you guys a bit of context about that, because what she has to share with us is incredibly compelling. And what I love, and I got to share this if you'll indulge me, and thank you for this, Zakiya, but what I want to share is that as she has shared her story about making sure her kids had clothes and food and necessities before even starting the day, she received worldwide attention, and donations came pouring in to her school, to her, and she appreciates that. But let me tell you what's just soul stirring about Zakiya Romero. Even more. Right? Is it possible? Even more soul stirring about Zakiya Romero, that she has said, you know what, I appreciate all of that, but let's create a way for other teachers to duplicate this, for other teachers in other schools to get donations. Wow. So her reason for being here is not to say, okay, here's where you can donate and let's do this some more. Her thing is, where are you locally? How do we duplicate this and take care of our little babies locally? And so she's going to give us some tips here. So Stephanie, and I paused because I wanted to make sure that I took some notes here. Sure. And you have clients who've come through with a myriad of things that they're dealing with. And you hear that Zakiya is a hero teacher who's literally caring for her kids. Although I've seen that if a child comes home with something different, the parents, especially if they feel like they're not providing, end up being angry. Yes. Have you seen that? And what are some tips for parents who may be listening who say, I need help, but I am embarrassed. Don't send my child back home with new shoes on or their hair combed. You're acting like I don't know what I'm doing. What do we say to folks in that scenario?
Well, the thing is, be it a teacher, it's very important to establish a relationship with the parents, so the parents will know that your number one thing is that child. And I'm not you. I'm not the mom, or in some instances, the dad, but I'm more of an extended family. Now, in the classroom, it is important. What I really, really loved about Barry is how he even put some of that on the parents to make sure that, of course, you start the child's morning off right. I have a lot of parents that come in to my office with overwhelm, and then some will say, well, you know, my child is just so slow in the morning, and what they describe to me is just a whole environment of organized chaos. So then it's very, very important that we have the opportunity where we teach them so that they can set the environment at home and see it as an extension. Now, what I love about teachers like Sydney and like Barry and even in Sonia, they need to be duplicated. And duplicated is just being able to share and to talk and to do some things. Now, you didn't know, I used to teach school too.
I did not know that. I thought you were born and then went to work as a licensed family therapist because you're so good at it.
No.
So what grade did you teach?
I actually started third grade here in Houston, and I didn't immediately go into the classroom because that stubborn streak in me, I want to teach my children that particular grade.
Gotcha.
And I had the opportunity to do it. But I also had a great principal that helped me. He gave me what I think is the best advice ever. He said, you know, sometimes it would be challenging, but make sure that you have one victory per day. Because for some of the children that I taught, it might be that they stayed awake during class, not completing all the work. And so I had the opportunity to actual partner with other young teachers of a different race, because I was also so pointed that I wanted to teach our children.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I did work with the parents. I'll give you an example of one. There's one, I'll never forget Shannon.
Okay.
Shannon was a busybody. Everyone loved him. He was the popular kid.
Okay.
But he had fits of anger, so much so that there were times where he would just knock the books off of the desk.
Oh, my gosh. Well, you know what, Stephanie? That speaks to having extreme home problems.
Yes.
And so, you know, maybe that kid may be in a scenario where they were probably facing the foster system or all kinds of things, especially to have that sort of anger. And as a matter of fact, I want Sonia to touch on this. So, Sonia, hey, she's joining us via phone now. Good morning.
How are you?
Wonderful.
What's going on with my computer?
That's okay. We want to thank you for pressing through. You have heard our conversation about students who are dealing with so much. And Sonia, I want to get to what your role in a solution was when two students were dealing with a home scenario similar to what Stephanie was just illustrating for us.
Well, in the case of my girls who, you know, they've been with us here in our home for almost 3 years now.
Okay, wait,
pause.
Sonia, you're saying.
She said, my girls.
My girls. You are saying as a teacher, your students now, you have a couple of students who are in home with you right now?
I do. 2 of them, yes.
Wow.
Sisters. And they've been with you 3 years.
Almost 3 years, yes.
Tell us what happened. What was that journey?
You know, I had both of the girls in kindergarten at you know, different points in time. And I knew the family well. I'd always known what their struggles were. And throughout my time with them, and I try to do this with all of my students, myself and my assistant, and to be really honest, the entire school does this. This is sort of our practice there, is that whenever we see a problem, we try to support the family. Obviously, we start by building community so that they feel safe coming to the school, telling us what they need. And then we try to make our classroom safe environments where if something comes up, say it's a doctor's appointment, they can't get there, or whatever it is that they need, we try to lean into that.
Yes.
So with the girls, it was a difficult circumstance of homelessness and you know, lots of movement and their home situation and whatnot. And so eventually they were indeed removed from the home, and they were placed with me fairly quickly. I went to school that morning with one child, and I finished the night with 3, and we've been together,
wow,
you know, since then. So,
Sonia, what tip do you have before we close here for parents who, for teachers who want to get involved?
I think the biggest thing that you need to do is to really pay attention and get to know your kids and be very empathetic to their circumstance.
I love it. Be very empathetic. Thank you so much. And, you know, your 1 minute elevate is teachers are the core. Teachers are your family. Teachers, bring it all together. Thank you. And it's been amazing. You're listening to Zakiya Larry Live. Thank you, Sonia.